Long before the internet connected the world, long before multinational corporations filed quarterly earnings, one institution was already operating a global network. It standardized data across continents. Its currency wasn't gold, it wasn't silver, it wasn't even paper. It was recorded obligation. And its headquarters wasn't in London, it wasn't in New York, it wasn't in Amsterdam, it was in Rome. Before corporations, there was the papal ledger. To understand the papal ledger, we need to understand the world it entered. Medieval Europe was politically fragmented. Kings ruled regions. Lords ruled lands. Borders shifted constantly. Authority was local. Information was slow. Coordination was fragile. Most power structures depended on physical presence. Castles, soldiers, tribute. But there was one institution that operated differently: the church. Not as a belief system, but as an administrative machine. While kingdoms rose and fell, the church expanded quietly, parish by parish, diocese by diocese, and everywhere it went, it recorded births, marriages, deaths, land transfers, tithes, obligations. What began as religious documentation evolved into a continental data infrastructure. Standardization is the foundation of scale. Without common formats, systems fracture. The church imposed structure. Canon law created universal rules. Latin created a common administrative language. Hierarchical reporting created vertical accountability. A parish priest recorded locally. A bishop supervised regionally. Rome consolidated centrally. This was not casual documentation. It was systematic. Tithes were assessed with consistency. Clerical appointments were registered. Permissions and dispensations were archived. In a fragmented Europe, this created something rare: cross-border administrative continuity. A ruler's authority ended at his frontier. The church's records did not. If you moved from one region to another, your obligations followed you. Your marriage status, your property disputes, your ecclesiastical standing, all documented. This was not modern accounting, but it was institutional memory at scale. Every large system is constrained by latency, not by intention, not by ambition, but by the speed at which information moves. When information travels slowly, authority weakens. When signals arrive late, decisions decay. When records fragment, power decentralizes, because coordination depends on visibility, and visibility depends on documentation. The church understood this constraint. It could not eliminate distance, it could not accelerate horses, it could not make parchment travel faster, so it attacked the problem structurally. Letters from Rome clarified interpretation. Ecclesiastical courts harmonized disputes. Standardized procedures reduced ambiguity. Canon law functioned as a shared operating system. Latin functioned as a compression layer, reducing translation friction across regions. Hierarchical reporting created escalation pathways. If a dispute arose in one diocese, it did not remain isolated. It could move upward. Information still moves slowly by modern standards, but it moved predictably, and predictability is power. Predictability reduces uncertainty, and uncertainty is the enemy of authority. A ruler might react emotionally, a war might disrupt territory, a dynasty might collapse, but a structured reporting system responds according to procedure. If Rome knew what was happening in distant dioceses, Rome could respond. Not instantly, but consistently. And consistency builds legitimacy. Legitimacy over time compounds. Over decades, this reduced informational fragmentation across Europe. Not perfectly, not uniformly, but structurally. The result was subtle but powerful. A network that could coordinate across kingdoms without conquering them. While kings fought wars, the church maintained continuity. While territories shifted, records accumulated. While dynasties collapsed, archives endured. The battlefield produced volatility. The ledger produced stability. And stability attracts trust. And trust reinforces authority. And authority, once embedded in documentation, outlives rulers. Because stone castles can fall, crowns can be seized, borders can be redrawn. But preserved records create institutional memory. And institutional memory is a form of power that does not require an army. The papal system was not only administrative, it was financial. Tithes were recurring revenue streams. Church lands generated income. Fees accompanied permissions and dispensations. Obligations were assessed. Revenues were tracked. Transfers were monitored. Funds moved from local parishes to regional authorities to Rome. This required accounting discipline. Balances had to reconcile. Exemptions had to be recorded. Shortfalls had to be explained. The church did not invent capitalism, but it institutionalized financial coordination. It demonstrated that authority could be embedded in records, not just in force. This model would later influence Italian city-states, merchant networks, and eventually corporations. When double-entry bookkeeping matured, it did so in a world already accustomed to structured obligation and recorded flow. The ledger logic was familiar. Scale was the innovation. No financial system survives without trust. Trust that records are accurate. Trust that obligations are legitimate. Trust that authority is stable. For centuries, the church maintained this trust through consistency, but trust is fragile. When recorded obligation begins to feel extractive rather than coordinative, resistance builds. By the 16th century, criticism intensified. The movement now known as the Protestant Reformation was theological, but it was also structural. Authority fragmented, compliance weakened, information networks split along regional lines. What had been a unified reporting system became decentralized. Trust fragmentation led to systemic decline. The papal ledger did not disappear, but its monopoly over coordination did. And once coordination fragments, power redistributes. Corporations did not invent global coordination. They inherited its logic: standardized reporting, cross-border compliance, centralized oversight, structured obligation. Modern financial systems refined these tools. Technology accelerated them. Markets monetized them. But the architectural insight, that power can be embedded in records, is older than capitalism. The internet reduced latency. Corporations scaled compliance. Central banks monitor flows in real time. Yet the core principle remains unchanged. If you control the ledger, you influence the system. Long before modern finance, before corporations, before sovereign debt markets, there was a ledger in Rome, in the Vatican, and in that ledger was power.